We appreciate you joining us here today. This is Dime to Diamonds. My name is Jessica. I am joined by two incredible women here, Suzanne Porsky of Phoenix Financial Group and, of course, Rochelle Harp of Harp CPA. That phone number, 918-890-8311, 918-890-8311. That website, if you want to get more details about the team there with Suzanne, dimetodiamondsradio.com. Lots to talk about on today's show. Of course, we are living longer. So how do you make sure that your dollar stretches as long as you need it in retirement? That and much more. We'll get to it in just a moment. Ladies, welcome.
Hello. How are you today, Jess?
I am doing fantastic. Glad to be back here with you. Rochelle, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm loving the weather. It's been a little busy, so we are moving locations, and it's fun, but there's a lot of work that goes into that when you realize how much you can accumulate in a few years. But we're having a great time and loving the weather here.
Yes, absolutely. We've been busy in our offices. I want to just shout out to all of those that have called in from the radio station, Jess. We've had some phenomenal conversations, and they've been so pleasantly surprised. I mean, they're just, you've answered so many questions just in a phone call, and then they get really excited about coming into the office. But it's nice to talk to them.
Well, and I think a lot of the feedback has been that the information we've provided and the experience that we talk about and how it's going to flow has been what they got. And so I think it's really nice that we've been able to share that.
Yes. Absolutely. So today's been full this morning of talking with those that have been calling in and touching base. So thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for calling in. And whenever you have, like with us, given up our time away from family and work and doing these things to reach out and lend a hand, you guys that are grabbing it are really filling our hearts. And so I wanted to do that. Thank them personally for calling in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we appreciate all of our listeners out there. And I tell you what, it gives you just kind of a nice breath of fresh air when you call in and listen. Talking about retirement, your money, your income, your financial future can be overwhelming. But I love hearing those stories where people are saying, oh, my gosh, you answered so many questions for me, and now I'm excited for what the future looks like. And listen, if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, what topics are keeping you up late at night? Well, let's hear them. That phone number, 918-890-8311. That's 918-890-8311. Let's jump right into it here. People are living longer, and retirement is lasting longer than it used to. There's a new study from John Hancock that even suggests a 40-year retirement could be the new norm. That's a long time. So is that a realistic expectation, or is it more of a scare tactic, Suzanne?
Well, you're right. People are living much longer. And honestly, that changes everything about retirement planning. What used to be maybe a 10 or a 15-year retirement can now, like you said, Jess, statistically is looking at 30 or even 40 years. So it's not fear-based thinking. It's longevity. And the problem I'm seeing is that people are still planning with these outdated assumptions. And so they're relying on strategies that were built for a different generation when pensions were more common and life expectancy was shorter.
Well, and I think people lean into, like, there's this magic number that you get to and now we can retire. And I don't know that that's an actual true statement, because it's not about once you have enough money, it's about having the flexibility within your income streams to be able to be proactive and agile during different market trends and stuff like that. So, taxes matter, the withdrawal strategies matter, and then healthcare planning is really, really important. So I don't think it's a whole different type of dynamic in planning for retirement.
Right. And that's what we're seeing more than anything. And, that's where we help people slow down and actually build a retirement strategy, and just instead of just owning investments, because a portfolio, as we've seen, without a plan can become very stressful, because life does throw different things. And that's where we like to stress test. Let's stress test your retirement, not just for 10, 15, 20 years, but let's do 40 years. And then let's put in their health care, because Medicare covers a lot, but not everything. And the big gap I see is what happens on home health. That's not covered by anything. So we've got to stress test that against your retirement.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that people sometimes forget, that it's not just the financial side. It's a holistic approach, and that's the piece that you have to look at. You have to look at whether it's the income, what time you're spending, what your healthcare needs might be in those different aspects. So, it's not just income that's sustainable and tax efficient over the next few years, we have to look at decades, like you were saying.
Right. And being proactive, not reactive, and then flexibility being a part of the solution and in doing that. So, no, I think they're spot on. I mean, statistically, but it's still the same statistics are showing that women are living longer than men. And so that's another part of that conversation that comes in, because maybe she's going to be taking care of him and his recovery from whatever ailments, whatever's going on. What about her? And that's what I like to ask them. Let's just single you out for a second and let's see what that looks like. What do you want? And I do have some people that say, no, I'm good. I've got a long-term health care plan and I don't mind being in a facility. And there's others that are absolutely, and this is more common than not, I want to be at home. Don't want to be a burden on family.
You know, it's interesting you talk about here, of course, being proactive versus reactive when it comes to putting together your income and financial plan pretty much any day of the week here. And, you know, healthcare and inflation, those are two of the most popular silent killers of retirement. And we've talked about that many times as well. And, of course, you talk about women living longer than men. I mean, that has been the statistic, is, you know, tale as old as time, so to say. So that's why it's so important that you and your spouse are on the same page here. And then, yeah, you know, for those men out there thinking, okay, what about my wife when I'm gone? Is she going to be taken care of? Is she comfortable with who we're working with? Is she comfortable with how the plan is laid out? And Suzanne and Rochelle, you guys take great pride in helping women just like this, widows, single women, saying, hey, look, we talk like you, we think like you. Let us communicate the way women communicate and make it easier for you, right?
Right. And I'm not just talking to the husbands. There's a lot of adult children out there, and that's who was in the office yesterday. Dad unexpectedly passed away. So this gentleman, Steve, and his family and his sister and her family are now trying to help mom sort life out. And he said Dad was so good with managing, keeping all the balls in the air with all the different investments. But the property that's in New Mexico that now is going through probate because it was in his name and not in the trust, those kind of things. So if you're listening and you have adult parents that need, it's going to fall on you when one or both transition and pass away, or there's health issues. So if you're listening and you've got adult parents that you would like to have this conversation with, reach out to me, set the appointment, and let us talk about what your concerns are, and then we'll bring them in the picture on another appointment. And of course, there's never any charge, as we say all the time. There's not any cost to anything we do. Let's run a needs analysis on what that looks like if Dad goes first. How are they going to take care of mom financially and otherwise, and organize things, and then vice versa. And so it's not just the couple itself, but it's also the extended family.
And if you're wondering, okay, what is this needs analysis about? Well, first of all, guys, it's complimentary right there. That's good news. Second of all, it's going to be custom, tailored to you, your financial situation, using your real numbers, looking at your financial plan. What do you need? What are you missing? What could you be putting in there that's going to give you a bigger, better result? If you'd like to come in for this custom financial needs analysis, give a call right now. That's 918-890-8311. 918-890-8311. That website, dimetodiamondsradio.com.
And you know, we've talked many times about the fact that men are great at taking care of everything and organizing. And just in that same situation where he had built up all these different income streams. However, they're doing that in a sense of, I'm taking care of everybody, I'm creating less work, less burden. But you and I both know that when nobody else has communicated the outcomes or where to go look for this, or he said the guy hid a gun behind the refrigerator, how is he supposed to know to go find that? So when you're not financially organized and then share that information with everybody, you leave behind a burden that you were trying to not give to the people behind.
Right, seriously. And that's what we were talking with yesterday, is just that conversation. And he said the hard thing is now getting mom in all her grief and everything is upside down to trust us of where we're going to take her. Like, I want to bring her in. And that's where I'm going to tell, our audience, get on the dimetodiamondsradio.com, get on that website. We have so many podcasts you and I have done. Let her get comfortable, or him get comfortable, or you, even as the adults. Check us out and see if it's a match. If it is, then schedule that appointment.
Well, and get comfortable with the terminology so that you know when you're coming in, you have an idea of what different things are. And some of the questions that you may want to ask, and then we'll ask a lot more than that. But It's not an inquisition. However, it might feel that way.
Well, and even at that, I said, my first thing is Mom continuing on taking Dad's RMDs? And I don't mean to talk in some foreign language, but those required minimum distributions. And he said, probably not. Dad did that. And I said, those are the things. And that's what's in our analysis is that checklist for them to say, hey, let's take a deep breath. There's no rush and no cost. Where are you right now? The loss happened. And then let's make sure we keep things stable as we start to create a plan going forward. And you can use us in that plan or not. It gives us great peace. And people said, this is like a ministry for you guys. And I said, if you had to put a title on it, yes, I guess you could say that because this is our heart and we want to share it and the knowledge of it.
And part of that, again, is sharing the knowledge, sharing the passion, getting you the answers that you've been looking for. And then most importantly, giving you the retirement that you've sacrificed, you worked so hard for. Again, it all comes down to having a conversation. If you've got a couple questions that are keeping you up at night, you want some answers, we'll do that for you over the phone, 918-890-8311. Better yet, if you're ready to get busy and start putting together your very own, financial needs analysis, finding out what do you need, what do you have, what do you don't need. These are all different aspects of this financial needs analysis that, by the way, not only is complimentary, but it's going to be custom to you. That phone number, 918-890-8311. 918-890-8311. That website, of course, dimetodiamondsradio.com. Stick with us in just a few moments. There's some limitations when it comes to a Roth IRA. I'm going to give you all the details. Suzanne and Rochelle are going to weigh in. We'll be right back.
When you retire, the paycheck from your job will likely stop. But here's what won't stop: bills, taxes, and medical issues. Sure, there's Social Security, but that may not be enough. Suzanne Porsky and the team at Phoenix Financial can show you how to develop a new stream of income that can last as long as you live. Kind of like having your own personal pension. You won't have to worry about whether the market is up or down, or about who's sitting in the White House. You can spend your time instead on the things that matter, like family, friends, and doing the things you never had time to do before. Call Suzanne today at 918-890-8311. That's 918-890-8311. And schedule your custom income review at no charge to find out where you stand now and how Suzanne can help you build income in retirement. 918-890-8311 or online at dimetodiamondsradio.com.
And we appreciate you listening today. Get this, Suzanne and her team at Phoenix Financial Group have a special invitation for you today. For the next 5 callers, they'll sit down with you personally and help create a custom retirement plan just for you. It's complimentary and there's no obligation. Just call 918-890-8311. That's 918-890-8311. And together with you, Suzanne and her team will look at your investments, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, show you how your life savings can create a dependable and sustainable income in retirement. Call today for your custom retirement plan, 918-890-8311. That's 918-890-8311. And visit us online at dimetodiamondsradio.com. Welcome back to the show. This is Dime to Diamonds with Suzanne Porsky of Phoenix Financial Group and, of course, Rochelle Harp of Harp CPA. Most importantly, folks, we love hearing from you. What topics are keeping you up at night? What's something you enjoyed hearing about on the show or that even you learned about on the show? That phone number, 918-890-8311. Get more details about Suzanne and the team at dimetodiamondsradio.com. Contributing to a Roth IRA, well, it has its limits. For instance, at age 50 and older, you're only allowed to contribute up to $8,600. Yes, that includes that catch-up. But if you make too much, I'm talking about $168,000 for singles, $252,000 if you are married, you are just shut out completely. All is not lost, okay? Stick with me. Wealth planner Tim Steffen tells Morningstar there's still an option called a backdoor Roth.
If you're not able to contribute because your income's too high and you don't have any IRA dollars to convert, the back door is a way to do that. So you put money into the traditional IRA and then wait some period of time, sometimes a day, sometimes longer, depending on what people want to do. And then you convert that to a Roth IRA. So backdoor Roth isn't really a thing. It's really just a traditional contribution followed by a conversion, which anybody can do that. That's a perfectly legitimate strategy.
Okay, so listen, when I'm hearing this, I say, okay, I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward, but I'm thinking this could really go the wrong way, especially if someone's doing like a DIY on a back Roth. I mean, talk to me about this. What do you think?
Yeah, that strategy is a fantastic one, and it sounds really simple on social media. However, details matter. And I've seen and heard people, backdoor Roth on podcasts, it's just moving money from one account to the other. And, there's some IRS rules and there's some surprise taxes that can fall out of that if people aren't doing the administrative and documentation properly. And that's always a big factor in everything that we do from our side, I'm sure as well from your side, is documentation.
Okay, I'm going to take a time out and go back on the Roth. So he was talking about, and you had mentioned about the limitations, but this is a big shout out to one of my favorite clients, Dane, who asked us about his Roth contributions through his employer. So can you expand on that, Rochelle?
Yeah, so when you're employed and going through your employer, the Roth limitations are not there. So you're able to go and contribute more. However, when you're talking these specific ones, you still have that limitation.
Right.
But when you're going through your employer, there is an exception.
What we're saying is if you have that option available through your 401k, through your employer, you have a Roth option. There is not the income limits. I'm going to repeat that again. There is not the income limits that there is when you're outside of your employer putting into a Roth. So I wanted to make that clear. We know that as financial consultants, financial professionals, that is something that is not talked about out there, and it's also a missed opportunity. So if you are over that income threshold that they have, you can do that through your employer if they offer it. Also, there's a backdoor Roth. You can't get into that money for 5 years when you do that unless you're over the age of 65. Mm-hmm. Then that 5-year limitation is removed. And so, yes, Roths, like everything, every vehicle, it's got its specialties. It's just not that simple, Jess. And that's what we try to tell people. When you see this stuff on social media, that's when people will reach out and I'm like, they're partially correct.
It's always good to listen to different strategies and to say, hey, maybe I need to ask the question about that. But you definitely need to make sure that you're talking to someone who has a significant amount of experience in that to be able to help guide you through all the nuances. Because the other part of that is, there's a pro rata rule. So if you have any other asset accounts that fall into this category, they consider that part of that total. And so it can limit what you're able to do in that side of things. And that's just not discussed in those little snippets. There's not the time for it, but you definitely have to reach out and see if the strategy works for you. And we've talked about that many times, that everything can be a good strategy, but not every strategy fits.
So I love when people reach out and say, hey, I heard this. Would this work for me? Because then, like Dane, he reached out and said, hey, did I understand this correctly? And I go, absolutely. I'm glad you presented that question. Yes, you can participate in that 401k Roth, and there is not income limits. Thanks for asking, and that works perfect in your plan. Now, other people that come in and say, hey, I want to take in my 401k from my prior employer and I want to do a backdoor Roth. So they're going to hit the income. They're going to get all the taxes on it. So now they've got a smaller purchasing power going into an IRA, which is okay if there's a bonus maybe attached to that new product and it's going to make up and it's going to build it back up. Yes, then that's good. But like we've said, Jess, everybody is different. It's like a snowflake. I've never seen two the same. I've never seen two completely identical plans coming in for retirement.
No, and it's never going to. I mean, everybody has different buckets. Everybody has different goals. And that's one of the conversations that we have from the very beginning with people is, what is your ultimate goal? What does retirement look like that's going to make you happy? And then we back into which strategies work well for that, as well as are the most efficient way to get there.
It's having a plan in place, at least etched out, and then keeping on that plan until things change. And part of that plan is developed through that customized financial needs analysis. And we have some pretty funny stories. I don't think I even got to share this with you, Rochelle. I have a guy that he took everything out of 401ks, did the Roth, realized that purchasing power now is so much lower. So he decided he wants to move to the Philippines when he retires. And he was asking me ways that he wouldn't have to pay the taxes here to do all of his stuff to take it over to the Philippines for retirement. But he's having to move out of the country to make his money work more for him. And I was like, we need to talk. If that's going to make your soul sing and you want to go to a foreign country for the rest of your life, only solely based off of money, there might be some other solutions. So let's have you in. Let's do a needs analysis. Let's talk. Let's have the conversations. Have you vacationed in the Philippines? I mean, just asking for a friend. He hadn't. He said no, but he did a lot of homework. He's been on YouTube. And I said, well, let's just get an appointment. Let's continue this conversation. Nothing is crazy. I mean, if that's what's going to light you up, then let's do it. If let's get that etched out, what that looks like, and then go from there. So, yeah, Roths have their place, and they're part of our custom financial needs analysis that we do for our clients. Absolutely, it's just everything in balance and everything with a plan.
And taking that first step to get that balance and that plan. Give Suzanne and the team a call today for your very own custom financial needs analysis. Again, that phone number, 918-890-8311, 918-890-8311. Again, more details on that website, day or night. Check it out at dimetodiamondsradio.com. You know, for decades, McDonald's let you serve yourself. I mean, the refills included. At least that was inside with the soda fountains. But that's all coming to an end here. McDonald's is phasing out its self-serve soda machines across the U.S. They'll be completely gone by 2032. And if you're wondering why, well, the cleanup is just a headache. But really, it's because customer behavior has changed. Fewer people are eating inside, more order to go, and there's tons of folks through that drive-through. So things have evolved, is the bottom line. And it really speaks to something that we've seen a lot in retirement planning. You know, sometimes the plan wasn't wrong. Life just ended up looking a little bit different than people expected. So what happens when life changes? Things happen. How do you recalibrate the plan?
Well, you know, I think there's only one thing that's constant in life, and that is change. And so I encourage people to start embracing change a little bit more and not be so reserved and fearful of it, because it's always going to be a factor of that. But I love the McDonald's example because McDonald's has been around forever and everybody knows the golden arches. And they have great strategic marketing. I mean, who puts the golden arches up that high where every kid can see it from the seat, even though they can't see out the window? I'm telling you, somebody really thought that through. But yeah, no, I love that because everything in our lives are always changing, whether that's our spending. When we get older, our spending may change. Our health changes and our family dynamics change. And those are all factors that need to be considered when you're trying to plan your retirement. And your retirement plan needs to be adaptable. Everything needs to be adaptable.
I actually think one of the biggest mistakes people make is believing retirement planning is supposed to stay static, because it doesn't. Life changes, families change, health changes, like you said, priorities change, and the plan should also evolve. A good retirement plan is not built to be rigid. It's built to be adaptable. And then sometimes clients, they think they're going to travel and their whole plan is based on all this travel, and instead they become grandparents. And let me just tell you, for those of you that aren't there yet, you don't know till you know. You become psycho. I'm psycho.
But in the best way.
There's a real example of this, because where are you all going for Charlotte's birthday?
Well, she's turning 4 and she wants to go to a restaurant in Seaside. So she said, Gigi, Mom said to ask you. Absolutely. Let's get on and let's book the accommodations and the flights and stuff.
Anything for those babies. She has She has Gigi wrapped around her finger.
Well, here's the theory. Not that I'm trying to make excuses, but here's the theory. She'll have more of her life without me in it. That's the truth. It hurts sometimes. I want to make all the experiences and have all of that. So instead of the toys, I'm like, no, we are going to go play in the sand. You're going to remember at 4 that you had your ice cream cake down there in Seaside, Florida.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and healthcare. In my own personal experience with my husband and his stroke last year, that was not on the bingo card. That was not planned. And I'm glad that it would happen when it did, and it's better, and his health is much better. But there's a lot of expenses that there was no way I could have ever even thought that were going to come about. And all the adjustments you have to make to your home and your vehicles when you've got somebody that is, not quite as mobile for a while. So we incorporate that because we incorporate our lives, right?
Correct. Our experiences. And I think that's needs to be said is that you live what you preach, which is having the flexibility, having that adaptability plan that has the safeguards in place, right? Because you had that ability for the bonus parts that come through to help pay for some of those healthcare costs that you didn't anticipate seeing. But your plan was designed to be adaptable if that occurred.
And flexible.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where, it's just, and I've said this often, people don't plan to fail, they just fail to plan. But you can't do and go places you've never been without getting some direction. And I think that's where you and I are real relatable. We're like, come in, let's have these conversations. It's never to scare anybody. It's always just to educate, because then you're empowered when those things do happen. Retirement's not a one-time event. It's a living season of life that needs ongoing guidance and recalibrations. And that's the fun part for us, because we get to keep in touch with all of our clients. We are definitely not transactional. We are relational.
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the great pieces is when people call up and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. How does that fit in my needs plan?
And that's where we go, that sounds like a good idea, or no. You need to leave the car show right now. You do not need that Corvette. Randy, if you're listening, this is you, buddy. I'm talking about you. And I was like, nope, because you got to store it. You got to insure it. All this other stuff. So it's pretty. Take a picture, go home, grab a hamburger.
Exactly. Yeah. Live within your means. And, I love what you're talking about there, educate and empower, and really planning for retirement and continuing that. It's ongoing guidance. As you talked about here, Rochelle, just a few moments ago, you got to be adaptable. It's not a set it and forget it. It's not a static situation, right? Life evolves, which means your life plans and your financial plans evolve with it. And the first step to that is finding out, well, what do I need to be doing? Or what is my plan missing that I need? Well, having that custom financial needs analysis is the first starting point. That phone number, 918-890-8311. 918-890-8311. I also want to just let our listeners know, when you come in for this custom financial needs analysis, this is the opportunity you'll have to look at your income plan, your tax plan, your healthcare plan. I mean, anything and everything concerning retirement, guys. So this is where you're going to find out where the loopholes are, where are the things you're missing here in that custom financial needs analysis. One more time, that phone number, 918-890-8311. The website, dimetodiamondsradio.com. Coming up in just a moment, stick with us. Does your retirement portfolio need a spring cleaning? We'll talk about some things that you might uncover. We'll be right back.
The people at JP Morgan found that if you have a steady, reliable paycheck coming in every month in retirement, you'll worry less and spend more. And that's what Suzanne Porsky and the team at Phoenix Financial Group have been doing for years. Find out what they can do for you. Call today for a no-cost, no-obligation meeting. 918-890-8311. That's 918-890-8311. Or visit dimetodiamondsradio.com and get it done with Phoenix Financial Group.